Facebook Live, so we're going to leave her at the back for today. As we get started with this one, I'm really excited to have the Early folks here.
Yes.
Those of you who are native know they've been a part of our community for as long as most of us can remember. And while we have the new generation of Curtis and Ally doing the presentation, I'm also excited to hear the update on what they're doing now. But before we do that, reminder, please turn off your cell phones or silence them. I see people reaching for their pocket. Two, how many of you went on the cemetery tour? All right, any thoughts, feedback?
It was great.
You said great.
I did.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. They were prime characters.
Do it again.
Do it again for those that couldn't come.
Yeah.
Good. Any other feedback?
Can you pick a cooler day?
In all seriousness, there are a couple changes. There's going to be those wonderful stairs that some of you walked up. We're going to have new rails up on that, which should be a bit easier. And we were trying to figure out how to do a nighttime tour. Most cemetery tours are at night. And it won't necessarily be a paranormal, just a nighttime tour. It's challenging because that's a residential street. And there's not a lot of lighting. So we're trying to figure out the safety piece and the neighbor piece. But yes, we can do another one at a completely different time of day in a month when it's much cooler. So that would address all of the feedback. Coming up, slight change in schedule. Wednesday, November 22nd, it is our hope that we will be having Phil Bennett, who some of you heard before, come talk about the Battle of Spring Hill. And we have a lovely gentleman named Bill Stanfield, who is a metal detector, and he will be bringing some of his artifacts. Now, watch that space, because that is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So it is maybe that it might not come to be because of the holiday week, but we're going to do our best. We've switched up from our normal visit at Ripavilla as close to the battle date of November 29th as we can, because we have these two wonderful speakers, and we don't necessarily want to be at Ripavilla while they're doing battle stuff. And there's a plan to work with Ripavilla to perhaps have a session on Susan Chairs. We talk a lot about the men in this town, but there were some pretty darn powerful women. So I'm going to talk with Eric and see if he will have his folks research. So we're thinking maybe Susan Chairs. Everybody heard of Richard Ewell? Well, the power behind Richard Ewell was Lazinka Campbell. And Ewell Farm was actually her father's property. So we're going to try and incorporate some of the women in our history in the process. They were kind of mystery. It's actually kind of hard to find information on them because they truly were the power behind the men. But we're going to do our best on that front. December, typically a month that we take off because of the holidays, and the fourth Thursday falls right smack in between Christmas and New Year's. But on the 28th of December, which is the fourth Thursday at 5:30, we're going to have a session on Christmas traditions and a little bit of history on the Polk family. If you traveled Murray County, you know that, as someone said about the Campbell family, they're a bunch of criminals and they breed like rabbits. So Jared Abdullah, who works at the Polk home in Columbia and has done a lot of the homeschool programs there, is going to be presenting Christmas traditions of the era and a little bit of the Polk family history so that we can begin to delve into the sort of the founding families of the area. So that's our next two sessions, and then I'm in shock, but we're at the end of the year. So we'll have a complete new schedule for the beginning of the year. Some of them may be repeat speakers, like a Phil Bennett or a Tom Price, and we'll try and change up the topics a little bit or add some information that wasn't there the last time. But it's my perception, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, that the more of these you come to, the different your perspective. So the first time you listen to Tom, you may have taken away this, but now that you have a little bit more background, you may take away that. So there's also something else in the works, and this is very much in the works. I want to say 8 years ago, close to 8 years ago, the city of Spring Hill passed a resolution designating the first Saturday in May as Founders Day. The intention was to talk largely about our agricultural history. There's been an attempt or two to put something together. This is a tough town because we have a lot of young people. That's a really good thing, but people want to tend to turn things into festivals for kids. We're gonna try and do something that's very much focused on the history, probably at multiple locations over multiple days. Again, it's a work in process, so we may get there and go, we can't pull it all together, but I think we've got some great players in place. And certainly, if this group especially has ideas on what you'd like to do, or like to hear, we're glad to try and incorporate it if we can. So, kind of your update on the speaker series. With that, Naomi Terry is going to talk a little bit about Friends, just as a reminder. How many of you have memberships of Friends? Oh, you got a big gap to fill, Naomi.
Yeah. You can't leave the building until you join.
And it's a really important weekend for them.
We're actually gonna, we haven't gone up in dues in a while, but we're gonna go up next year. But if you join before December, you can get it at the $10 single, $15 for a family. We're really done some things different this year. One of the, Linda Fields, our membership chair, brought up the fact that a big thing is promoting reading. So we came up with a card, and it has, we're getting it out to seniors in high school and younger, all the way to strollers. And that person gets a free book. And all they have to do is present that card. And we're gonna continue it next year. So we're giving free books to these teenagers and younger students, and it's really turned out well. At the last book sale, we had 3 teenagers come in and they said, I've got my card, you know, and they were excited, you know, about getting a book, which is what, you know, we're promoting. The book sale is this Saturday, but if you're a member, we have members only on Friday night. And we have in this room, you have to come in that side door because the library closes that night early. But it has worked out really well because it's not the crowd and it's not congested like it is on Saturday. And a lot of people like it that way because they don't feel, you know, like they have to jostle around somebody or anything. So we really want to look at some things to do differently, to increase our vision out there. We're working with the Well, and we hope next year on the book sales that we will have the Well here. And if we can bring so many ladies in, you're gonna get free books. And this way it'll help the Well, and then it'll promote the, you know, reading in the community. So if you hadn't joined, shame on you. The lifetime membership is $100 for a single, and it's $150 for a family, which is really a good deal. And it's named after Pat Lee, who started all this back in '75. But we're glad to be part of this. We're hoping to be part of Founders Day, and even though I wasn't here, it's really interesting to read all this stuff and see the history in this town and the things that it's accomplished. And one of the things that Benny came up with, because we're doing a book, it's a village that became a thriving town, or thriving town. It's gonna be a book we're gonna put together. That's gonna have some photos and some narratives, so we're really excited about that. So.
I will say this about Friends. The great thing about joining Friends is that you can come to the meeting, but unlike other things that you join, where there's a monthly membership meeting that you have to show up at, you don't have to do that with Friends. So you join, you get the benefit of the book sales and the wonderful people that volunteer, but you don't have to, it's not a huge time commitment unless you want it to be.
Unless you want to volunteer.
Unless you want to volunteer, in which case you need to talk to her. Okay, how many of you here know where Early's Honey Stand is? Yay! How many of you here remember when it was literally a stand by the side of the road? Okay, so we're about 50-50. The honey stand, where it is, where basically where they are now and where the honey stand was earlier, was about 1 mile north of Spring Hill. City limits are at the cemetery. And then you went into Williamson County, and that's where Early's was. Now it looks like it's in the middle of everything, and has always been in the middle of everything, but it most certainly was not. People coming down from Nashville would tell you that there was pretty much nothing between kind of where 840 is now, all the way down. And once you hit Early's Honey Stand, you knew you were getting close to the hill. That was kind of your marker. Tina's nodding over there. Going the other way, someone tell me once they would blink and miss Spring Hill, but once they passed Early's, they know they were getting closer to Nashville. Still 30 miles, but so we're really excited to have these folks here. I think they have some products. We're gonna ask that you not open any products in the library, because otherwise Dana will have to kill you. We really don't want that to happen. But on that note, I'm gonna welcome Curtis and Ally and let them take it from here.
Thank you so much for having us. This is a huge honor. We're actually making a push really this year, led by Ally, to kind of grab all our history together and get as many, pieces from, the past, documents, newspapers, stories from customers, and just all kinds of people that we've interacted with throughout the years. So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit, maybe 20 minutes or so. We've got some catalogs, props that we'll hand out throughout the speech. We'll also have a giveaway with some trivia. So once we're done, if you listen, you'll be able to answer the trivia and potentially win a gift basket. And then we'll do a long Q&A. So we want to hear from you guys. We're certainly not. We're beginning this process, but we don't know everything, not even close, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. And so we'll do a Q&A after some opening words. So I'll go ahead and start, and if you want to jump in or anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I kind of want to open with a question.
Would you mind speaking up this?
Oh, sorry. So I kind of want to open with a question that we might not even know the answer to. So what is it that makes a small business in Spring Hill, family owned, last for nearly 100 years? Oh.
Curtis, that actually also makes you a lot smarter, so.
Thank you. Oh wow, this is awesome. Okay. You guys can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll start again. So what makes a business, a small family-run business in Spring Hill, with all the changing geography and politics and technology, last nearly 100 years? We're not quite sure we have the answer to that, but it's just something to ponder as we begin this talk. Okay, so where it all began, this is a photo of the toll booth that Early's began right to the right of. This is looking south. This is looking south on what is now Highway 31. It used to be the Franklin Turnpike, which was a private road owned by the Williamson Company. The Williamson County Turnpike Company, which was owned by a man named Tom Johnson out of Franklin. And every 6 miles, he was allowed to put a toll gate, basically. So people traveling north or south would stop at the toll gate and pay to go through. According to Erskine Early, in 1922 and 23, the prices were as follows. A loaded wagon was 20 cents to go through. Horse and a rider was 10 cents. Car was 15 cents. Truck 25 unloaded and 35 cents loaded. And so at each of these toll gates was a gatekeeper's house. The gatekeeper got an acre of land and a house, and they monitored the toll gate. And as people were traveling, this became kind of the first place where you would stop, fill your radiator, talk, maybe get some food, and kind of became, I guess, what is now a rest stop. So in 1924, the state actually purchased the Franklin Turnpike from Mr. Johnson and made the roads public, and the toll gates went away. But the gatekeepers' homes stayed. And they had this kind of, like I said, rest stop feel to them. And in 1925, Mr. Johnson sold the gatekeeper's lot to Erskine and Early's parents. Okay, so this is a little bit on the family. Erskine's father, Talbot Early, and mother, Mamie Early, they were the ones that purchased this gatekeeper's home. And it already had this kind of feel where people stopped, so they kept stopping. And in 1925, it was a different time. Honey wasn't sold in grocery stores until 1934, and they had a really good honey crop. And as these travelers by were stopping and filling their radiators and talking about the weather, etc., they wanted to get honey, and Mamie and Talbot, and along with Erskine, started bottling the honey and selling it to the travelers. So the first stand, even before the photos that we'll show you coming out, was literally just a stand. 3 barrels with 2x8 boards across the top, and a honey for sale sign. And as Erskine and his father and mother were working in the farm, the kitchen, they just left the barrels and the board up there, and it was an honor system to purchase your honey. And they said they never lost a bottle. So over the years, really honestly throughout that first year, Mamie Early began cooking jams, offering cider, which some of the apples came from across the street, and it all went well. The travelers all liked the products. In that winter, Erskine's father was making sausage, and one of the passers-by saw him making the sausage and said, "Can I buy some?" And he said, "Well, yeah, but it's got to be smoked first, but you can come back and get it." So Erskine's father had a spice recipe that he did. He smoked the sausage, put it in the cloth bags, and the traveler came back and purchased the sausage and told his friends about it. That's really a core product that we have to this day. The sausage, the same way that Talbot made it, we still make today. On their property, they got up to processing 3 hogs a month of sausage, and then went to local packers to help with the volume. One of the first ones they used was Joe Dobson out of College Grove to help with the packing. But the sausage, the spice recipe, the cuts of meat, the way that it's smoked, the end cooking time is all exactly the same as it was back then. And you'd be hard pressed to find a better sausage. So this is a photo of the stand and what it developed into. you can see the honey and hams on the side, the honey stand, and it was right off of 31. And that's how it sat from the 20s, or all the way up until the 50s. So the road, 31 was a large thoroughfare from Chicago down south. As things began to develop, the highway came in, I-65 was coming in. There was going to need to be a push towards mail order. Erskine Early went off to war in the 1940s, and when he got back, mail order, there was some mail order, but it was kind of an afterthought. They were doing it out of the kitchen, they were losing boxes, taking weeks to ship boxes, and they had about a fourth of their customers, which at the time was 50 people. But they had to track down the addresses, they weren't keeping the addresses anywhere. So Erskine decided to really push the mail order. He got the names and addresses of the customers, sent them penny cards, also got another 100 names and addresses from Birmingham and mailed to them as well. Pictured up here, it's a little blurry, but this is the first purpose-built mail order facility. And this is actually where we currently are today. The way that it looks today, it extends further to the left and further back. But this building that's what it looked like in the early 50s when they built the first purpose-built mail order facility.
Where is that today?
That is where we are operating out of today. It's the exact building. So if you just off 31 go past the little gas station building at the back of the commons area, that's where it is. Yep. And these two doors on the left, that's where you enter today into Early's. So from 1950, and I think it's being passed around. From 1950 to today, we've mailed a catalog each season, a different catalog each season. You can see they've changed a fair amount, and kind of as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, a lot has changed over that time. When we first started shipping catalogs, Sears was kind of, you didn't even compete with Sears. They were sort of the environment in which you competed, and yet they're effectively no more. And we've kind of chugged along over that time. These are just some of the covers over the years, from the 70s, 80s. The ones that you have more from the 50s are hand drawn. And yeah, over the years, we've shipped to many different people, national championship winning coaches, NASCAR drivers, former U.S. presidents, the Queen of England, and then also Elvis. So Elvis was, Early's was Elvis's favorite bacon. So anytime you hear bacon referred to by Elvis, it was Early's bacon. In this book, Elvis by Albert Goldman, he mentions that Colonel Parker always had cases of Early's slab bacon to go along with cigars and sparkling Mountain Valley water. Always had to have it on hand for Elvis. And especially in the 70s and 80s, many national publications started to pick up on Early's, especially the sausage. including the Merrill Ellis pictured, who had 57 million readers at the time. Another thing that makes us somewhat unique is we are a holiday tradition for many people. We do a lot of our business in December. We have grown our business outside of the season, so the numbers come down to just a mere 40% of our sales in 3 weeks. But we do have customers ordering throughout the year as well. And we, as far as gift companies go, we tend to compete pretty well because, what goes in the box, the products that are in the box are very high end and stand on their own as good products. This is a picture of Steve Early packing in the basement during the season. As he says, probably after 9 p.m. when he wanted to be with his friends. And he actually stopped by the museum that we have outside just last week. Yeah.
All right, so Steve Early is the one picture here, and this picture just goes to show the intensity of the holiday season for us here at Early's. So all of those boxes were waiting to go out the holiday season. But he told me, he said he hung his hat up there and didn't get out until usually around midnight for these sessions. So this was probably taken around 9 p.m. is what he told me, but I was the only one there when he stopped by. So he was just talking my ear off, but they're the sweetest family. So I was happy to listen. Here, I'll give you this back in a second.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there, and then open the Q&A. Or yeah, if you want.
Yeah, so now we'll go ahead and open the floor for any questions y'all have. We'd love to hear it.
Where do you source your honey from? Where do you get it?
Yeah, so we have tons of different sources. So our two locals are going to be the Wildflower and the Clover. So the Wildflower is literally right down the road from us. It's going to be on the Columbia side. And then the Clover is going to be in the Franklin area. Then we also have the Sourwood and Tupelo and Orange Blossom as well. The Sourwood's from East Tennessee, and then the Tupelo and Orange Blossom are both from Florida. So it just depends on what you're looking for, if you're looking for something local or just something to sweeten your tea.
So Spring Hill had, when Early started, I think this is right, Manny, you can help me, there were actually 2 aviaries in Spring Hill, 2 beekeeping facilities in Spring Hill that ships all over the country, and also worked with Early's. So that was kind of another cows, honey, one of the many horses, one of the many things that we were known for. And you probably have some folks on the front row that can share some recollections of going to Early's or visiting with them.
We would absolutely love to hear them. And we also have, if you want to stop in store sometime as well, we have a place where you can write out all of your Spring Hill stories. So we'd love for you guys to do that so we can share them with others. But if you all want to tell some stories, feel free, jump in.
I'll say too this. So the picture on the end here is Erskine's mother, and the building that she's actually cooking in is a pre-Civil War, basically like lean-to hutch that they had on the property, on the original property, and I don't think you can see it on this. There, you can see. Oh, maybe you can. There's actual bullet holes in there, like holes that she had that were Civil War bullet holes. That's not there anymore. It's been torn down.
Any questions, guys?
Any questions?
small business like this can endure this long because it is capable of changing to adapting to new conditions and new markets and developing those markets as well. That's a pretty sophisticated thing to be able to do.
Thank you.
And we're not talking about MBAs running customer surveys or anything. We're talking about somebody that just apparently had a feel for it, or you just didn't make a change and what to hold on to. What can you attribute this ability? Is it just the whole family's ideas, or is this just one person's genius? Or, I mean, that's the trick right there, isn't it? Being able to adapt to the change.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the nail. Erskine Early was the first one to really come in. So when he came back from war, he kind of changed the entire business around because his brother, as well as his mother, had kind of started into the mail order business while he was gone. He was like, oh, this is huge. This is a fantastic idea. So that was in the 1950s, and we all kind of know how mail order has come up with everything else. So he was the one who really started it, and you can pretty much see his face in every single catalog that has come out throughout the years, and he was a huge figure for Early's Honey Stand. So everybody knew Erskine. He's a talker. He loves just being within the community. So it was his thing, honestly. So he was a marketing genius. But just as the Gibbs family came in, they kind of recovered that as well. So they've been working really, really hard on history. And then when I came in, they actually sold me out of a restaurant. But I had marketing experience in the past. So when I came in, it was my goal to focus on the history again. We are the oldest retailer in Williamson County as well, which is something that is super, super important to me to focus on. So, of course, you know, I had to go back to his ways. So the language, everything, I've kind of studied how he used to speak, how he presented himself in the company, and that is what I wanted to put forward for Early's Honey Stand. Anyone else? Yeah, right here.
I'm a visual kind of person, and it says 1 mile north of here, or I just have no idea what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
But it's by such and such building or road or.
I can go ahead and kind of answer that question for you a little bit more. So as of right now, if you're looking, are you looking for where we sit right now? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Keller Williams building is up front, so you'll see a exit realty sign. So right up there, and we're kind of tucked back in the little hollow back there.
Let's go with this. Everybody know where Popeyes is?
Yeah.
And Firestone? They're
Across the street. There you go.
Cigar station.
Thank you.
Vintage 615 used to be in there. Mama D's mac and
Yep.
cheese.
So we're in that little center right there.
Restaurants.
Thank you.
That's where you're at right now, and then where was it originally?
Yep. So
What's there now?
yeah. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So it's,
It's better.
yeah, just basically so where we are would be back off the road from this, just slightly south of this toll gate. But it's all it's basically right in the same area. So there.
I'm sorry, the Honey Stand, if you're driving past, you now know where Mama D's and Popeyes, that complex is. There's 2 new brick buildings just past that as you're going south on the right-hand side. That's roughly where the Honey Stand was originally. Because that was all part of the same property. So does that help?
Yeah, it's the same side of the road.
Same side of the road.
Up further.
And if you look there to your right now going south, you'll pass Popeyes, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see a house, an old ranch-style house. That was their home. Behind it is the building they're out of now. If you go just past that, the next properties are 2 of our lovely square-looking brick buildings that we build now. And that was where the Honey Stand was pretty
So
much
the
on.
building you're talking about is Lifehouse Church.
Yes, yeah, Lighthouse Church.
Exactly.
That's the vicinity. Sorry, Chris.
No, exactly. That's it.
No, we want
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you, you know, I think, Tom, you asked a great question, and I don't know the answer, even though I'm, grown up with Early's, but, Erskine was really good at marketing the southern aspect of Early's. Hickory Farms, everybody heard of Hickory Farms? This was like Hickory Farms before Hickory Farms. There are so many country hams that got sent to people who didn't really know that you had to cook a country ham, and they would slice it up and go, this is really salty. There's stories of, and I know one of the recipes where the recipe would call for you to cut off the ham hock, the kind of bone that sticks out, and people would cut it off and come to realize that it had been passed down as a part of a recipe because somebody didn't have a pan big enough to hold the ham pot. That became a part of the mythology that Erskine sold, was that family lore of here's what you can do. And I think Ally's getting some produce back there. And what are you talking about early?
My husband and my children worked over there before. My children were about 11, 12 years old, and they would fill up the honeydews. And they couldn't get paid because they were too young, so they put it in Bobby's check, and then we'd take it out and put it in their bank account. And Bobby would come home from work, stop up there and make the boxes at night. And, then when he was working up there on Saturday or Sundays, and, sausage truck would come in, and he'd say, "Here comes the groundhog."
That sounds like the judge.
And, oh, he just, you know Bobby, he aggravated, like to aggravate.
No.
And, so he had people up there that he did things just to irritate them. But they got a lot of them fine. And then Eddie would cook ham sandwiches for him at night when he stopped by.
It was biscuit in that ham, man.
Yeah. And,
You know, there's also a story that, everybody know where Price Lane is? Or Prince Lane if you're new, depending on how you pronounce. Up north. Right. I know that, but there's some people here who pronounce it Fritz, and that's okay. Yeah, we'll have to teach them the right way, she says. There's a story, across the street from Early's, there was an orchard. And the gentleman produced apples that he shipped all over the country, and he got into business with the Earlys and used the apples to make apple cider. So this gentleman decides he wants to go fishing and hunting. And so he goes fishing and hunting, and he leaves his mother, who's probably in her 70s, in charge of selling the cider. Well, she decides she doesn't want to take it in at night, so it sort of sits in the sun for a couple days. You ready to know what happens to cider when it's warm? It ferments. So she sells a couple of jugs. Those old jugs of cider to a truck driver that's coming through on 31. And by the time he gets to Crack Lane, he's gone off the road. Wrecked his truck because she wasn't allowed to keep the cider after that. She had one turn and that was it.
Yeah, she always said that truckers like the cider when it was a few days old. She didn't know why.
Janice, Tina, do y'all have any recollections of Early? Harriet?
I do. My dad's sister worked there for a long time.
Yeah?
And, we bought honey in a clear little plastic bear with a black cap on the top. And I would just love for those to come back. Those were just, we got those every day. Those were wonderful.
So you see, Tom, he marketed to the kids who got the parents in there.
We might point out that if you look up, we're Library of Coincidences, and Janice has made these beehives for a different event, but the timing is perfect. Thank you, Janice, for the beehives above your heads. So we have our own little apiary here in the multipurpose room.
Any other questions? Yeah, Gail.
Do the Earlys still own? Are there Earlys that you guys own it, or who owns it now?
So we own it, the Gibbs family. My dad's actually back there. And then, but the Earlys did own it before, up until the mid-80s.
So you're not related to them?
We are not related to them, no.
But their son still shows up and visits every once in a while.
Yes, yeah.
My sister Jean worked there for years. She was the one that took the orders and shipped things out. My
Oh,
mother
yeah.
and sister worked there in the Christmas season to help them get all that big rush. And I went to school with Douglas. So I was wondering if you know where Douglas and Steve are living now.
So Steve is in Washington State. So I'll say it again. Steve is in Washington State at the moment. So he flew out for a church event that was going on, and he stopped by. It was a total surprise to us, and we were super happy to have him. So you can see a picture of Steve on our social media. If any of y'all follow us on Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing, you'll see it there. But it was an awesome thing to have him in the store.
Other questions?
Alicia, isn't there a connection between Longview?
Yes. We have done that without naming names, but. So across the street from Early's, there's a White House that sits up on a hill, if you decide to go explore and find Early's. That's a farm known as Longview, and that's where the apples were grown. So he also,
we went by the guy, put it out, and said, I'd love to know the story.
well, offline, we can have a long conversation. But they also, they had an orchard there, I think it was in the 50s, and it was plowed down, because it wasn't making any money, and oddly enough, I think there are 2 trees up there that are heritage trees, one pear and one apple, so kind of interesting. And he also had beehives, that are some of the old wood frames back in a barn, like there are many things back in the barn at that particular. So, it was very much a center of the community. People worked there, and some of them were a bit like Bobby Russell, and known for saying, "Here comes the groundhog." And then there are others, I'm sure, like your aunt, who was probably not like Bobby Russell. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, Naomi?
How in the world did the Queen of England latch on to y'all? I mean, do you know?
I'm not sure.
I know a little bit. So Erskine used to send out postcards. We know that Birmingham, Alabama was a major hotspot for those to go to. But he sent out samples, postcards, all kinds of things just to get the product out there. So at the time he was like, okay, we're doing really well in the States, so why not go international? And what better way to do that than to try to get it to Queen of England? So he did end up sending a sample, I believe it was of the sausage, and sent it her way, and it was kind of just one of those things. So that's what we know about it, but we kind of lack some written evidence of certain things. So we kind of go off of Erskine stories, the catalogs that we have, that basically are a little archive, but it's constantly growing. So we just got like the Elvis book. We were looking for proof of that for so long because it was all word of mouth. And finally, someone called in, and she was like, hey, I'm reading this book right now. And Early Stand mentioned it. It's actually about Elvis. And we were like, whoa. This is fantastic. So we finally found the book, tracked everything down, and that's how it came to be. So now we know.
Another fairly well-known and local author who mentions Early's in one of his books. And if one of you gets this right, we have something for you. And I may need help from the locals. Anybody know what other local author has written several books, talked about Early's? Peter Jenkins. You don't remember? Ding, ding, ding. I cannot remember, just at the back perusing his Walk Across America book. Peter did a series of books that he wrote in the late 70s, early 80s, and I'm fairly sure in the Walk Across America, it may have been his next book, he made mention of stopping at Early's. So that was another famous mention, not quite as famous as the Queen of England, or Elvis for that matter, but
This was written out of
that's right. There you go.
That's where we go. We're doing shopping. Absolutely.
Yeah, Nan's posting questions.
Did you ever, in that history, was it ever available as a restaurant any time of the day?
So there was a short time when Erskine opened a restaurant. It was only open about a year, with less than a year, and he got back out of the restaurant business. But it was in the 70s, I believe, when he gave it a try.
And the other question is, what is your bestseller?
The sausage.
So Erskine would have been competing with another restaurant in town that was also well known, and it was established by a gentleman who had put it specifically on Highway 31 because that was the truck route, north and south. Remember, Interstate 65 really wasn't finished and didn't go all the way into the Nashville until mid-70s, maybe? So the truck traffic on 31 was something extraordinary, although it's less than the traffic we have now. But that restaurant was known as Stan's. So you know where the barber shop is in town now? Right next to that on that empty lot was Stan's, and then that became the Poplar House and other things. But Stan's Truck Stop. Stan's kind of an interesting story, and we're going to have to pull some resources to do this as well. But that's who Erskine would have been competing against. Stan realized that if he could feed the truckers that came by, he could also give them someplace to sleep and give them a shower. And so in the back of Stan's, back behind the barber shop, that's why the lot's so deep, he built showers. And I heard the other day, and Janice, you might be able to help me with this, that those showers, the water for those showers came off of an artesian well that was on the back of that property. Right? So we had a lot of entrepreneurs, and Erskine was probably smart to get out of the restaurant business. Pretty low margin, and he was competing with some pretty known quantity. Other questions?
No, when did you ever introduce a product, since y'all was in there, that it just took off in a way it didn't, or the other way around, it didn't do anything?
Marketing person's gonna answer this.
All right, so this past year, we got in so many new products around Christmas time. So we got in our new barbecue sauces, so that, they're all done by a small business, so they are fantastic. If you guys haven't had these, my absolute favorite one, and it seems to be Kelly's favorite one too, is the brown butter bourbon grilling sauce. That one is so good. But that one has been a bestseller for us both online and in store, but it's something that the customers absolutely love.
Other questions? All right, then I'm gonna quiz you, because we've got some things.
Seems like we got one more time.
Tom?
Just out of curiosity, who are the two ex-presidents?
I'm not sure.
I know it was in one of the letters.
Jimmy Carter?
You're right, yeah. That sounds about right.
Look at them, Tom, put
Yeah,
them on the
we'll
spot.
track it down. It's something, so like, it's like, oh, these are the people who have tried it. They lists and lists and lists, but at the same time, it's not names. It's like, oh, these are their titles. You know what I mean? So it's impressive.
You were challenged with the question. Do we have some questions to challenge the group with? I'm looking back here at your table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who remembers what the tolls were? Any one of the several that she mentioned?
Loaded wagon, 35 cents.
Whoa, that was not a hard enough question. 25 cents, you answered, I think, first. Did you answer 25
I
cents?
said 35 for a loaded wagon.
35 for a loaded wagon, is she right?
Yeah, 35 for a loaded truck. That's-
Oh.
Okay, I think you just got yourself a
Yeah,
box.
all right.
Thanks for horse.
Can you turn this? Okay. So what she's saying is everybody needs to borrow, everybody has a story. She says there's a story that Erskine wrote in there about
He couldn't go through it, he couldn't go over it, he went under. It's funny.
I remember that story, I don't remember the conclusion of the story. So, Google, everybody has a, not Google it, borrow, everyone has a story, which is also, by the way, gonna be reprinted at some stage, so our library's been pretty busy. Yes?
I've got a question for Dana. The book
Mhm.
the library's working on, is Early's gonna be in there?
Of course. We see some images we need, though.
Group to work on a book for a company called Acadia. You go to Cracker Barrel and you see all about Franklin or all about Murray County, and we tried to work with them, but unfortunately, a lot of the photographs that we have are not real high quality. They're old and they're copies and copies. So Acadia, we flunked Acadia, basically. We flunked Acadia because of the quality of the photographs. So our history group that meets here on Thursday afternoons got back together and said, you know what, we're gonna do our own book. So they're in the midst of writing that, and that's the one that Naomi, I think, mentioned, hopefully will be for sale at Founder's Day, if we can get Founder's Day done. Other questions? Somebody, did you learn something about a business that you didn't even know where it was? It is probably, I know it's the oldest business in town. I can't think of another business, some of you might be able to help me, that is even close to that age that still exists.
Laundromat.
Bowman's, I was gonna say wishy-washy, thank you. You know where the welding shop is on Main Street? It's just before you get to Duplex? And the horrid looking building? That was the first laundromat. There's a gentleman named G.W. Bowman who ran that, got into some issues with how the machines drained in the back, and he built the building across the street where the laundromat is now and where the harbor is, and moved across the street. The metal building, I think, was constructed in about 1976. The block building across the street, I think, was constructed in the 30s. And it had been a dry goods store and a number of other things. So, second to Early's, Bowman's Laundromat was probably the oldest business. Unfortunately, we lost GW a couple years ago at the ripe old age of 104. Used to go to breakfast every day at the old school cafe. get his breakfast and have enough for lunch, so he was regular there. Other questions, other comments, other businesses you'd like to know more about? None, zero?
What are your hours?
Good question.
So right now we're Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4, but, right now we're Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4, but starting, the first full week of November will be, 10 to 6, Monday through Saturday. And then we have the, website, earlys.com, where you can order as well. And even do, like, you can order and pick up in store from there as well.
Is the coffee shop still there?
It is not still there.
Ally, any other questions? I'm looking at the box, I'm leaving this to you.
So that one is catalogs, and then I have some honey sticks passed out for everybody. Those will be at the door, if that's okay.
Do not open your honey sticks in this building.
Not.
Yes, ma'am.
What, how many employees I mean, I know that the holiday season's your busiest, but would you go from like 10 to 40 or?
Not that much. We go from 4 or 5 to 12 to 15.
Really?
Imagine what technology has done for this business.
Yeah.
2011. So yeah, even just in the last couple of years, like as an example to what you said, our mail order and all that stuff's on Shopify, and we've cut the time that it takes, you give us an order to us processing it and getting it out for shipping to, probably about 1/5, 1/6 of what it was before.
So here's another question, some of you who are local will remember this. How many of you are familiar with hog killing? Yeah, I thought the local hands would go up, and y'all hands went up. Hog killing happened when the weather got cold. There are pictures in the book. I think all of us who grew up here remember hog killing. It's actually kind of a big social event, because everybody from different farms would come to your farm and help you. So the hog would get slaughtered, hung up, and literally every part of that hog would be used for food. My mother's favorite story was that she loved the brains. So they would do that and take it in and mix it with eggs. That was for scrambled eggs. Scrambled eggs, yeah. So when you think of a hog, I think of bacon, which I could eat 24/7. And I think of ham, because that's what, in fact, I think I still have some Early's ham in the freezer. I'm not quite sure how long it's supposed to last. But the hooves would be done, chitlins, every part of that animal, and it was truly a community event to come together. And I shared that with a story with a friend of mine who was from Memphis. We were doing some interviews, and
They take the feet and the head and make, sausage.
anybody know what souse is?
Hey, cheese.
If you go to Huff's Grocery on Pope's Chapel Road, sits right at the intersection of Carter's Creek and 840 in Barwood, you can still get a South sandwich. My mother loved it. I was not too fond of it. But if you think about it, if you're going to kill an animal, you need to make it work as many different ways as it works. There are pictures of hog killing. It's pretty graphic. You're not going to see it now.
You can also get barbecue sauce.
You can get barbecue. That kind of disguises the taste. So Early's, I think the other thing, Tom, Early's what they were producing was, I can't think of a better word than say than it was a natural product to this area. It's what the farmers were producing for their own families, and so he just took that and commercialized it. And like I said, Yule Farm, everybody familiar with Yule Farm? Yule Farm, if you go out Depot Street, you'll see the railroad depot. There's a private driveway. Please do not go up the driveway. But Yule Farm sits back there. It belonged to a woman named Lizinka Campbell. She married Richard Yule, who was a Civil War general. Yule Farm at one stage was 5,000 acres. He had an orchard on almost every portion of that farm, and they would ship the apples and the cherries and everything else. Spring Hill, which was a mile into town, did not want a depot. I'm not quite sure why. We wanted a road through town, but not a depot. And so Richard Yule gave up an acre for the depot to be bought because he needed a way to transport Jersey cows and hogs and livestock and fruit and everything else. So it's part of why this area became known as the bluegrass of Tennessee. Phosphate. Because that's in, it's where the mining was in Mount Pleasant. But it was also a part of fertilizer. And it was in the ground to begin with. We didn't have to fertilize. So the mining moved to Mount Pleasant, but there was also a phosphate mine in Spring, well, outside of city limits, but in Spring Hill, out on a road called Doc Robertson. You go out beachfront. There's a place out there called Laura Lake that covered up the homes that belonged to the workers for that phosphate mine. So we'll try to dig. I did not know that, so this is new to me, but we may do some more digging into that.
Dinky track that came across Big Rock Road is actually mine.
There's a dinky, did you just say dinky track?
A dinky track that the railroad cars
Oh, the railroad cars would go down.
would run on.
I heard something totally different that was not appropriate. All right, are there other businesses that you'd like to hear about? I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't want to hear about Best Buy and Popeyes. Are there other local businesses? You said you wandered by that house and thought, I'd like to know more about that. We can work on that. But are there other places that you've driven by and thought, wow, I wonder what that was, or I wonder what that business was?
How about churches, early churches?
Absolutely. So, for Founders Day, one of the things that we're going to try and work in is starting at the old cemetery, where some of you were, is a walking tour. That would include stops at those churches. And then hopefully we can include those who come to Founders Day in Sunday morning services at those churches. And I'm not quite sure how to work it into this group, because it would involve walking from one end of town to the other. And if you've ever walked Old Town Spring Hill, there's a reason that it's called a hill. Right? So we may try and do something up here where you can sit in your comfortable air-conditioned chairs and have a tour of the churches and then delve further at your own convenience. But
That would work.
yeah, and some of that is also working with our African-American churches. So, good suggestion. Other suggestions for places you've driven by? Yeah.
We tried to find some of these things you guys talk about. We found a few. But, what's the Old School Creamery? It's an old building with a sign out front.
If you go out Depot Street, you know where Depot Street is?
Where what is?
Depot Street.
Oh, that's where we were driving down.
If you drive out there and the railroad tracks curves in front of the depot, as soon as you cross the tracks, they're on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I have a picture of it, and we wondered where it was.
The Old Stone Creamery is a structure. The young ladies who are running the Old Stone Creamery are trying to, they are outsourcing products from local farmers. Everything from any kind of beans you want to really yummy ice cream, butter, eggs, milk.
When are they open?
I cannot give you their fall hours, but if you will Google them, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from like 10 to 3, and then they're open on Saturdays.
Would you Google Old Stone Creamery?
Google Old Stone Creamery. Now their goal is to be able to buy their own equipment and produce their own dairy products. That dairy has been there since 1872. In fact, at the corner of Jimmy's Cleaners, if you read that sign, it talks about Campbell Brown of Ewell Farm and McCoy Clemson Campbell of the farm where the Old Stone Creamery is. The building, the stone building next to the metal building that they're operating out of, that creamery, there's like a watershed that runs through it, so it keeps things cool. That building and the red dairy barn in the background belong to Ewell Farm. So that family was instrumental in the development of the dairy business. Brought over the first Jersey cows, came from the Isle of Man.
The house of that.
Yes, in fact, Dana and I were talking earlier, so anybody heard, sorry, this is off topic, guys. Anybody ever heard of Murray the Mule? Blank stares. At some point in the year, and I can't remember what months, the Columbia Chamber of Commerce marketing folks put out a little passport with Murray the Mule. And it's intended for kids to go to local businesses and get a stamp and try to find Murray the Mule at these local businesses. So for Founders Day, we've been trying to come up with an animal for Spring Hill. A cow, potentially, or horse. We're thinking about Duplex the horse. Everybody remember Duplex the horse? Or the other one is a fellow named Tormentor the Bull. Tormentor came over to the Campbell place on a ship from England and killed a man in the process. So he's kind of another well-known character, but we're working on that. Okay.
First Jersey cow came to the house,
First Jersey cows, and some of the descendants are probably still there. That family's probably the only family that has pictures of cows, paintings of cows, not just pictures. All right, so we have Yellowstone Creamery. Does that help know what they're producing? Make a trip out there and Google them, because it's another great local business. They're just outside of Spring Hill. But
Alicia, they're open Thursday and Friday 10 to 5 and Saturday 10 to 3.
Could you repeat that, please?
They're open Thursday and Friday 10 to 5 and Saturday they're open 10 to 3.
And oh, by the way, you can buy meat out there. I forgot about that.
And great pickles.
And great meat.
and elderberry syrup, I got mine last winter there, every time I needed it.
When you buy there, you are truly supporting local. All right, other businesses? Yeah.
You go out, beach crop, heading towards Harvard Creek.
Thank you. That road out there.
Yes, there's that sweet little cemetery on the right.
Yeah.
Right past there, there's a beautiful home that sits back with big columns inside. I can't find out anything about it.
It's known as the GT Curry Farm.
You can buy our book.
My Dot lived there for a very long time.
My great aunt and uncle,
Yeah, her great aunt, what she said. Her great aunt and uncle built that house.
well,
It's outside of
Aunt
city.
Susan's mother, the Weatherlys, built that house way back out there. And they sold a lot of phosphate off of their property. And it was my grandmother's brother.
There you go. That gives you more information than you had.
And so it's a privately owned.
It's a privately owned.
Well, it was up until, a few years ago, when they sold it to an investor.
And I suspect that as parts of Beechcroft are annexed into the city, which the city's not annexing a lot of property right now, but that's 600 acres. So that has the potential to be a huge development, what they do with the old house. I know, I do too.
The grandson farmed it for many years after they all passed away, and he got to where he couldn't farm it, physically. And so this investor, but he was still running cows and so forth, I think. So I don't know, I think somebody lives there now.
So you mentioned something else, and again, these are all, if you go to lunch with Naomi and Dana and I, you won't eat. You'll just listen to these ideas bubble forth. One of the things that we've talked about doing in conjunction with Founders Day, but also just in conjunction with this group, is coming up with sort of a walking, driving tour. So when we talk about restaurants or make recommendations, we can give you, hopefully, an integrated online map so that you know where to go. Because I can talk about a lot of things, but if you can't find it, I do know there's some people that when we had the lumber discussion that drove up and down Sugar Ridge Road.
That's how we found this creamery.
There you go. Yeah. Watch that creamery. They do some great farm-to-table dinners. They actually do a cow hugging session. Always a little surprised when people don't know the difference between a bull and a heifer. That's me. All right, these are great ideas. Please keep the ideas coming. Is there anything else you want to ask our guests from Early's? They've given information that I didn't know about.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get my dates wrong. November 22nd, here, for what I am fondly calling the Bill and Phil Show until we come up with another title. But it'll be your, I want to call it, with all due respect to Bill and Phil, a layman's interpretation of the Battle of Spring Hill with artifacts, right? So, obviously the 29th is the anniversary of the battle, but we hope these two gentlemen can give us a different perspective, and then we'll work in with a different point in time. Okay? Yeah.
This is totally off the wall. It has nothing to do with anything.
Not like I've been talking off the
But
wall for like.
it's historical maybe. We moved down here from Illinois in 1997. We lived in Bellevue up until 2 years ago. And we saw the light, and it
took you to Spring Hill.
And we've lived here now almost exactly 2 years. And I've wondered, is there a high place in this little community that actually is Spring Hill? And where is it?
That's a good question. So this city actually is made up of numerous springs. I just saw where Spring Hill Elementary is, there was a home called
Utopin.
It's an odd name.
Utopin.
Owned by a man named John Wesley Chairs. John Wesley Chairs was brother to Nat Chairs in Portobello. I just found the sale for his property when he died. He had multiple properties. Every single one of them lists 5 or 6 springs. The spring for which Spring Hill was named is over by the lake at what formerly the Children's Home, now Kedron Square. The spring house is long gone. We've been trying, the Historic Commission has been trying to work with them to have some sort of a marker that acknowledges that that's where it all really began. But people talk about going up the hill, and unless you get onto the Children's Home property, you're like, there's no hill here. It's pretty flat, but a lot of them built those too. So that's where the spring was. Almost everybody on Main Street up until probably the late 60s had a spring or a well on their property because there was no city water.
There was a well in the house that the tornado took down that had a spring, well on the back porch, and the lady fell in it and drowned.
During the tornado?
No, before that, but the tornado took the house.
So it was a fortunate area. It makes a lot of sense when you think about how this area was settled in the early 1800s. It was phosphate in the soil, so natural farming, natural crops, horses, cattle, feed for all of that. You had natural water sources. And to be completely, we have to recognize that there were Native Americans here before we were, not so much tribes that settled in this area as tribes that would pass through here on their way to other places, but they would stop. In fact, up by the Hampton Inn, the Lincoln Tennis Facility, there's actually a creek, wet weather stream along there. That's one of the places where they found artifacts. Not so much now that the Seventh Harbor was built, but there was water everywhere. Not
I lived on Beach Park Road for 14 years. My grandparents, my husband's grandparents, bought a farm in around 1900 or early. And they had a spring and used it for their water, and we used it for our water till, till we sold the farm in 1984. And we always had spring water, never ran out. But it may not be working now because of all this blasting and everything they've been doing. Of course, the people that bought it put in running water.
Yeah, I'm thinking we need to have an Ann Russell program.
Yes.
You know, I'm on a spring out where I am, and it's kind of funny because my nephews come from North Carolina. They go buy bottled spring water. I'm like, dude, it's coming out the faucet. It's better than you can get in a bottle.
Perfect.
All right, I'm gonna let y'all go. Thank you all for being here. Yes, sorry.
When is Nan having it in, when are they having this over for breakfast?
Talk with Nan about breakfast and sausage, and then we'll figure out a name program. Thank you guys again.